And you're going to edit this, right?
No edits. This is I'm recording. This is live. No, well, it's not live, but I'm not gonna. All right, we're gonna get started. No edits. So, unfortunately, the live stream for me is not working here. I just finished the interview with Suds Jane, which you'll see posted by now. By the time you're watching this, it'll obviously have been posted because so will this one have. And I would have loved to do a live stream. We're being graciously hosted here at a startup in Santa Clara, their office. I don't know. Can you see that in the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Silos.com graciously allowed us to use one of their meeting rooms, which is where we're hosting this. They have a super fast internet connection, but Facebook Live is blocked. And I actually was able to get a hold of the folks that set up the router and all the settings and everything for the Facebook. Anyways, not to go into technical jargon, it's blocked. They tried to clear out the block. It's not working, and my phone signal here is horrible with AT&T, so I can't even live stream over AT&T. So for the future live streams, I'm probably going to have to find a different location, so that way we can actually live stream them. I don't like this recorded and uploaded thing. It's not live. One of the beauties was that this was supposed to be live. In any case, no edits. I know you just heard Tino ask the question. It's going to be edited. No edits at all. I'm going to upload this as is. Because I'm recording this on my phone, it probably cuts out at about 45 minutes, but then I can start the recording again. So at around the 45-minute mark, if we go that long, I don't know if we will, if we do or don't, you'll see the video cut, and I'll just start it right away again. Enough of the rambling. We're here on the hot seat with me, Hosam. Today we have, right now we have Tino Silva, who is running for seat 4, right? I got it, 4.
Seat 4.
Perfect. Okay, real quick, in case you haven't watched any of the other videos or you haven't read the details, the format is as follows. There are 3 sections of this hot seat, or this interview. The first one is we're gonna want to get to know Tino on a more personal level. I also have a little bit of an icebreaker game. It's pretty fun. We'll see how that goes. The second part is what I call a pitch. So Tino will freeform or prepared whatever he came in for, and no time limit. He'll be able to talk to us about the top 2 issues that are relevant for his platform or what his platform stands for, and why he's running for council. And then the third section will be the hot seat. That's where I get to ask the tough questions. There are a few rules. There are 6 rules that we're having everybody follow. The first one is there's no time limit. So Tino will have the opportunity to speak at length or as short as long he wants, as long as he wants. I'm not going to cut him. I'm not going to rush him. The second rule, it's a casual conversation. So that means that we're going to chat, going to ask questions. If he wants to, if I want to ask a follow-up or interrupt him or just kind of interject or ask, probe on things, it's a conversation as you would have with anybody else. As you can see in this room, it's a very small room, but small meeting room, but there's nobody here other than me and Tino. So that's the third rule, is that his opponent will not be here, or his opponents will not be here. Number 4, the questions will be specific to Tino. Now, like I said on the Facebook post, some of the themes or questions may be shared, common, depending on the position. Obviously there's less commonality between clerk and chief and council, but so there will be some shared themes. But I would say probably more than half the questions are specific, or the discussion will be more than half of it will be specific to Tino for this session. 5, the candidate is allowed to bring whatever notes and papers that they want. The use of electronic devices will be severely limited, and in some cases will not be allowed in some seats, depending on whether there's an agreement between the folks in there or not. Oh, so he's put his phone right in front of me. So you're welcome to use it as long as I can see that you're not getting answers fed to you. That's what matters about the electronics rule, because we've had some reports that candidates in previous forums were having answers fed to them.
You mean my staff of 20 can't send me any?
They can't send... well, this isn't even live, so I don't even think they could. But on the live ones, people have been being fed. Okay. Clearly, rule number 2 about a conversation that's happening. And number 6, and I'm going to hold all candidates to this very strictly. Tino or all the candidates, whenever they're sitting on the hot seat, are not allowed to talk about their opponents. This is an opportunity for us to get to know Tino and why he would be good for council, and not about his opponents and why they would be bad for council. So I won't cut off for time. I won't rush for time, but I will cut off if there's a violation of that rule. So if there's at any point the conversation steers towards talking about his opponents, then I will interrupt and make sure that we can get it back on the right track. So with that, I am going to pass it over to Tino, or move the camera over to Tino here, and I'm going to put this aside. Thank you, Silas. What's up, Tino?
How you doing?
How you doing? All right, so we're gonna start like we said with the format. Tell us about Tino, on a personal level, right?
Okay. So I basically wanted to come here and just have a very frank conversation with Hosam. So these are my notes for the day. That's all I prepared. I'm
sure you have a lot prepared up in there, right?
Well, some would argue that. I've been a resident of Santa Clara for 46 years. I've attended all Santa Clara schools, Santa Clara University, undergrad, grad. And, you know, my passion is really to serve. Over the last 10, 12 years, I've served in some capacity, whether it's been president of a Little League, president of youth soccer, on the Parks and Recreation Commission. I'm currently doing therapy in our school system. So I've always had this mantra of giving back, and I've always had this mantra of service, which I think was instilled or installed in us at Santa Clara University. They really were advocates for community service and for standing up for those that otherwise wouldn't have a voice. And so I think for me, that's been something that I've kind of held near and dear. You know, I'm also honored to run and to serve because it's kind of a tribute also in a way to my parents, who unfortunately have passed away. But my father came from Portugal. He didn't read, he didn't write. I was the first person to ever go to college in our family. And, for them, they were just hard blue-collar workers that lived paycheck to paycheck. And I don't think they would have ever imagined in a million years that their son would actually be involved in city politics, on the Parks and Rec Commission, but let alone run for council. And so, unfortunately, they're not here, and I wish they were, and I'm sure they're watching from somewhere, but this is a way to say thank you to them as well.
Tell us something that most people don't know about you.
Well, I've rode with Lance Armstrong, believe it or not, back in the day. I like to ride centuries, which are 100-mile bike rides. But one of the things that I haven't shared with anybody during this campaign is I umpire high school baseball. And last year, 2015, or 2014, I worked with an organization called UmpsCare, and what they do, it's the Major League umpires have a charity, and they come to 10 cities. 2 of the cities are in northern and southern California, and they go to the oncology and cardiac wards of Children's Hospital, and they give the kids that are there Build-A-Bears. And so in 2014, I donated my entire season. All the money that I made from umpiring, which was dozens and dozens and dozens of games, I donated every penny of that to UmpsCare to buy the Build-A-Bears for these kids. On top of that, I was also able to raise an additional $5,000. So we were able to buy 200 Build-A-Bears for both California locations. And so,
that's awesome.
That's something I haven't shared with a whole lot of people. Maybe I should have shared it, but most people don't know that.
So you're a lot into sports. You umpire baseball. You
umpire
soccer,
high school football.
football.
Yeah. Sports has been a huge part of my life. I mean, since I was 6 years old, I played soccer. I played on the very first Santa Clara youth.
What position?
I played everything.
Okay. Goalie even?
I played goalie. Being 5'5",
you don't have a very far wingspan.
I only played goalie a few games. It was I wasn't a very good goalie. But I was been involved playing sports since I was 6 years old. I played on the first Santa Clara youth soccer team, which back in 1979 it was called Mission City Soccer. I played on the very first sporting youth team in 1985. You've
seen it grown then, I'm sure.
it's grown exponentially.
Yeah.
It's grown in some ways that are good and some ways that are arguably not so good. But sports has been a huge part of my life. What some other folks don't know is at age 15, I was the equipment manager for the San Jose Earthquakes back in the 80s. So one of the cool things is I got to practice with the team every day.
Wow.
So I was a 15-year-old practicing with these players.
They weren't so big then, I guess, though.
They were huge.
Oh, they were?
They were, well, the Earthquakes were.
Okay.
We were, we were the only professional sport, in the South Bay. Right. And so getting to practice with these guys that I watched play on TV as a kid was absolutely amazing. But sports has been a huge part of my life. I currently referee high school football. I umpire high school baseball. And, it's probably always going to be a part of my life. I've coached football at Santa Clara High School for 6 years. I've coached soccer for over 10 years. Been on nonprofit boards for over 10 years, president of Little League, president of youth soccer. So it's just part of who I am. And that service is really part of who I am. It's what I've always been about.
Do you have kids that you also coach or umpire?
I coach both my kids in soccer.
Okay.
Now neither of them are playing soccer. My son is at the University of Arizona. My daughter is at St. Francis. And, it's kind of a love-hate thing. I really wish they were still playing, but I love the fact that every weekend I'm not traveling to Napa, San Francisco. It's really nice to actually have a weekend to ourselves instead of taking kids somewhere. So, on those of you that have kids that are playing traveling teams and so on and so forth, you probably know where I'm coming from.
Hey, we're going to play a little game here that I kind of put together. Here's how the game works. I'm going to move the camera so people can actually see what's on the screen here, and also get if you can pull your chair a little closer to the screen because it's hard. Yeah, there we go. That way we can see both you and the screen. But you can look at the screen. That's cool. As long as we just... Now, what we're going to do is first reactions when you see the picture that I'm going to show up.
Okay.
All right? It can be short, it can be long, but your first reactions. Don't try to doctor them or anything like that, okay?
So now Hosam is doing somewhat of a Rorschach test.
It's somewhat of that.
Somewhat, okay.
Here you go.
Okay, so this is kind of a Rorschach test. Unfortunately, Hosam, I've actually done this 10,000 times at graduate school, so the question is, what am I seeing? And I always see a young lady.
You see the young lady?
I always see the young lady.
So you've seen this picture before?
I've seen this picture about 10,000 times.
Okay, good.
Which is okay, but yes, I actually see the lady, but I also know that there's...
You see the old lady, but you also see
there is the old lady. So I guess one can say, from a viewpoint, am I...
No, don't try to doctor it. Just what's the first thing?
What does that mean? I don't know. I mean, I've always saw the young lady first.
Okay, cool.
Well, to me, the first thing that comes to mind is the students that I do therapy with and counsel. It's kind of the first thing that comes to mind, just because of the age, and there's an inquisitive curiosity, and typically when I see kids, they have that same inquisitive curiosity, curious, questioning, unsure, and so that's the first thing that comes to my mind.
Do you know if this is from a movie or?
Yeah, it's
okay. So you do. Okay.
Yeah, it's
The Hunger Games.
The Hunger Games.
Yes.
Which I've seen every
the
movie.
movie.
Yeah, the whole. Yeah.
So this character, it kind of like you're saying, it shows you, or it expresses to you the inquisitiveness of some of the students or the kids that you coach. Yeah. Do you like the movies?
Yeah, they're okay.
They're okay.
I mean, there's
maybe for the younger crowd, I guess.
For a little bit, yeah, but I get caught up in them like anybody else.
Okay. I mean, it does allude a little bit to the role of government in our lives, don't you think?
Well, of course, Hosam will take it to government. I'm looking at it from more of the what's going on with the individual, the curiosity of what's on their mind, and but I mean, certainly, yeah. I mean, and it's rather
classic battle of good and evil. No,
it's David and Goliath. It kind of feels like this campaign a little bit. It does feel like a David and Goliath campaign.
I'm surprised it didn't come to you the first thing that came to your mind.
Well. If you would have given me a cheat sheet, I probably could have. I probably could have done something.
I have a picture. I think the next one. Well, let's see your thoughts.
I mean, let's see. Okay.
Yeah.
I have no idea who these people are.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I see. I don't watch a ton of TV. I like to read more than I like to watch TV. So
You don't know this show?
I have no idea who this is. Is it 2.5 Men?
No, this is Parks and Rec.
Oh, Parks and Rec. Oh, sorry. Well, I'm on the Parks and Rec commission, but obviously I need to expand my horizons a little bit. Yeah, I don't watch a ton of TV. I typically like to read. So
I thought this was up your alley. I thought this would be your thing.
So I've seen one Parks and Rec episode, and it's very humorous. And honestly, it actually kind of did remind me of our own Parks and Rec. If you ever come to some of our meetings, they can be rather humorous. And I think if you go to some of the council meetings, they can be rather humorous. But unfortunately, I've only seen one episode, and I have.
Okay, now it's on your list of to do. When the campaign's over, probably.
Yeah. When I get a little bit of free time, I'll go and binge on Parks and Rec.
There you go. All right.
Got to go with Snickers.
Why?
Because as a kid, we never really had a whole lot of money, and so we never really had money to go to what we used to call Stop and Go. Now it's a different market. It's called, I don't know, Quick Mart or something. But as a kid, for me, getting a Snickers bar was like a real big deal, and it was only like 30 cents when I was a kid. But we used to go into the couch and find all the money that would fall into the couch, and we would get enough to go down to this Stop and Go and get a candy bar or something. So the reason you got to go with Snickers is because there's all different flavors here, right? So you get the peanuts, you get kind of the caramel, you get all this nougat stuff and chocolate, whereas Hershey's is just kind of plain. So I guess if I were to look at this, it was always like, if you're going to spend money on something like the Snickers bar, because it's got so much more than just a bland Hershey bar.
Interesting answer.
I have no idea how this is going to help you want to elect me, but I guess...
No, this is about getting to know you as a person.
Getting to know me.
This is about getting to know you as a person.
Okay. Wow. So currently, obviously, the flag always seems to bring its way into politics. Whether it was at one point we had whether or not one has the right to burn a flag. When I travel, and I've traveled the world, I've been to Israel and Palestine, I've been to Europe, I've been to to Mexico, I've been to Asia. You learn that for all the shortcomings and all of the strife and all of the struggles that we have in our country, that our country is still one of the, if not the best countries to live in. And the flag, to me, maybe I'm a little bit more old school, but as a kid we would salute the flag, and it was a matter of patriotism. And I think what that flag stands for is the stories that when people look at that flag, for some of them it reminds them of the presidency, it reminds them of our military, it reminds them of our freedom of speech, it reminds them of the fact that I'm here today being able to talk candidly with somebody about what I feel is important in our government, is because of not necessarily the flag, but because all of those people that have fought to allow us to continue to have these types of conversations. And so, obviously the flag means something different to everybody, but as I get older and as I get more experience, and as I get more as I begin to travel more and understand more of how other people live, it does give me a great satisfaction to know that when, a lot of times this flag means a ton to a lot of people.
What does it mean to you?
To me, it really, right now, for me, it means the opportunity to be able to run. And, what's interesting is because we have the First Amendment, is, the right to choose, it can also be abused. But that's what we have to live with. This whole thing with Blue Pack and all of these lies, and I call them slanderous lies. Unfortunately, because of of freedom of speech, somebody has a right to express their views. And I don't necessarily like it. I don't think it's right. And there is legal recourse. But it's part of our society. And I think for it's kind of like Facebook. I think everything starts out with the best of intentions for the most part. I think with Facebook it was a chance to communicate and stay in touch with family and friends. But of course, it didn't take long before we started using Facebook to bully. We started using Facebook to traffic. And so, again, even with the First Amendment, it's most other countries in the world don't have it, and we do. Mm-hmm. But with that comes responsibility. And with that, sometimes, unfortunately, especially running for office, we have to also endure the bad. Mm-hmm. We have to endure people's right to say what they want to say, whether it's true or not, and that's their right under the First Amendment. And so as much as we despise it, because nobody likes to be attacked or lied about, that's part of our freedom. Mm-hmm. People have the right to do that. Well, I got married in that church in 1995. My wife and I got married 21 years ago.
I did not know that.
Yes, we got married there.
Good choice of picture, I suppose.
Yeah, and we were actually married by a Jesuit priest at Santa Clara University. I also went to undergraduate at Santa Clara and graduate school at Santa Clara. So I got to tell you, just finishing my graduate degree.
Does this mean a lot to you then?
Santa Clara University, I've been blessed because, when I was in high school, I was a horrible student. I mean, I had a 1.33 GPA my sophomore year, mm-hmm. right? And it wasn't because I was dumb, or it wasn't because I didn't, I had a learning difficulty. It's because I just wanted to go out and have fun. Mm-hmm. And so it was either go out and TP houses or do homework, and I wanted to go TP houses. So, but what a lot of people, again, don't know is that I had 2 scholarship offers to play at Santa Clara University. 2 coaches asked me if I would be willing to play at Santa Clara, mm-hmm. to play mm-hmm. soccer. And I was a ball boy for them for 4 years as a little kid. So I always dreamt of going to Santa Clara, but the truth was I didn't have remotely close enough GPA to get in. Funny thing was, is that I made a decision my second year of junior college that I wanted to go to Santa Clara. Mm-hmm. And so it took me 3 years at the junior college level to get all the courses I needed, to get the GPA I needed, but eventually I was admitted as a transfer from a junior college. So, it's great because a lot of the kids that I work with today oftentimes don't feel like they fit into a Santa Clara. It's not for them. Well, the truth was, my parents and I together made about $20,000 net, bring home a year, and Santa Clara U at that time was $10,500. So I remember when I applied to Santa Clara, my parents said, forget it, we can't afford it. And I remember breaking down crying because I was so mad. And I was 19, 20 years old, and I was so mad that, why don't I have the opportunity to go? Mm. And so I said, you know what? I'm still going to apply, and I'm going to find a way if and when I get in. And so I sold my car. I worked every odd job I could at the school. I worked summers at the Parks and Recreation Department. I worked at the Park and Rec while I was going to school. And my last quarter of my senior year, I was $900 short. I had nothing left to sell. I had no more student loans. I had nothing left. And so I went and asked the Jesuits for a grant. And they gave me a grant to finish my degree at Santa Clara. So, that's, Santa Clara is very near and dear to me. And quite honestly, the education was second to none. But it's what I took away, as I said earlier. It was about standing up for those that can't otherwise stand up for themselves and being a voice for those people.
What about college in your family? Were you the first?
I was the first person to ever go to college. Okay. First person ever to get a graduate degree. My brother actually, went to college for less than a year and said it's not for me. Well, now he's an equipment manager in the National Hockey League, so he actually has a pretty cool job. Sometimes I wish I had his job. But yeah, I was the first person to ever go to college, and it was tough because I didn't have parents that could help me. I'll be honest, my girlfriend's mom was the one who taught me how to write. Every paper I wrote, she would take a red pen to, until after a year, I learned not to say certain things. Don't say it this way. Don't say it that way. You have and so I've always been very appreciative of my girlfriend's family, Barb and Vic Corsiglia, because they really, without their help, I don't think that I would have been able to academically get through Santa Clara. So I've always been very, very fond of of their just support in helping me get through it.
I'm hitting all the right pictures. This is awesome. Okay, this one. I'm hitting all the right pictures.
Yeah, well, truthfully, a lot of people think that I'm against the 49ers and that I don't like the team and I hate the team. The truth is, I love the team on the field. I've always been a fan. I mean, for a long time. And even now when I watch the games, I mean, the players in the field are professionals and they're hired to do a job. And, of course I want them to be successful. But the fundamental problem that I have with the 49ers is not that I want to screw them over on rent, not that I want to screw them over on permits. I mean, that's the farthest thing from the truth. What I want from the 49ers is what I would want from any other company, and that is to be true to their word. The 49ers are a business, and I recognize that. And we need to have a relationship with the 49ers. There's no doubt that we don't need to have as good of a relationship as we can possibly have. Their job is to make as much money as they can. They're a business. And we sometimes forget that, we just look at it and say, no, it's a football team that plays on Sundays. No, it's a multi-million dollar business. And what I want from them is to just do what you say you're going to do. If you say you're going to build soccer fields, build them. If you say you're not going to go after a soccer park, then be true to your word. If you come into our homes and you come into our meetings and you come into our board meetings and you promise something in order to get something in return, and then as soon as you have the opportunity to seize that asset that you said you would never go after, it's not even that it's a soccer park. It could have been a baseball park. It could have been, a lawn bowling facility. The point is that we, the soccer community, supported the stadium because we felt we had the support of the Niners. And when they completely did a 180 on us, a lot of us felt as if we had been taken as a fool. And so the whole thing is not to see how I can screw the 49ers over or how do I make life difficult for them. Nothing could be farther from the truth. What I want is a good, cordial business relationship where we as a city are going to look at their interest. They are hopefully looking at the interests of the city, and that we can sit down and negotiate in good faith. Okay? And I think if you have that, then we will right the ship. But I think right now, unfortunately, there's been a lot of goodwill on one side of the fence, and there hasn't been as much goodwill on the other side of the fence. So, first time shame on me, first time shame on you, second time shame on me. To make a long story short, that's kind of how
we'll get into it a little bit.
How I feel about that.
Oh, not that one. Sorry, why did it do that? No, we already got a movie question out of you. We got a movie question out of you. What about this one?
It's sad. Actually, looking at this makes me not so much sad from a crying perspective, but maybe just bothered because whether you're Republican or Democrat, it really doesn't matter. This whole campaign has been nothing but negativity. And let me tell you an interesting story, and why this bothers me is that I had a kid come into my office, and I asked him or her why they were so angry, and the person said Donald Trump, and I couldn't figure it out. I'm like, well, what the heck does that have? Why is this 11, 12-year-old kid angry with Donald Trump? And when I asked him, he pointed to his arm, and I said, okay. So I had to figure. I said, so are you pointing to your arm or the color of your skin? He said, the color of my skin. And I said, wow, that's interesting. So what is it about Donald Trump that worries you? And he said, well, because if Donald Trump becomes president, he's going to deport me and my family, because he said that he's going to deport all folks that are from Mexico. And my family, my grandparents were from Mexico, and so I don't want to get deported. And the next thing he said is that Donald Trump is going to enact the laws, the early 80s, where in his mind, he thought that he was going to be tar and feathered. Now, I know it sounds kind of like, where would a kid come up with this? But the truth of the matter is that instead of being leaders, instead of being an example, instead of being somebody that we would aspire to be, which has been traditionally, what our presidents have done, this campaign actually had a kid for months worried that he's going to be deported. And I don't know about you, but I wonder how many other kids and how many other people have listened to this rhetoric. And really, it has nothing to do with politics other than it really has to do with hate. And that bothers me. It really bothers me that we're not even talking about what's really bothering Americans today. We're in a fight to see who can one-up the other person as far as slamming them. And, they have an amazing opportunity to lead and influence, and they're squandering it. Every day, even more so, they squander it.
Okay. I'm just checking the camera to see it's still recording. Okay.
The Mercury News.
First thoughts.
First thoughts, I like the Mercury News. I think the Mercury News, even though they didn't endorse me, which is fine because, again, they have their reasons for endorsing candidates. I respect that. I mean, of course, I wish it was me, but it wasn't. But the Mercury News, I think, has for the most part always been fair. I think that they've reported especially stuff that I'm familiar with, the soccer park and the Super Bowl, and some of the politics in Santa Clara. I think that they've been fair and forthright. I can't say that for all the papers that I read, but for the most part, I kind of have a positive reaction to the Merc. Wow, if this isn't the elephant in the room, this is I'm not going...
First reactions. We'll have an opportunity to talk in the hot seat about this, but first reaction.
First reaction?
Yeah.
Despicable.
Okay.
Despicable. I told my wife when I was going to run, I said, honey, they're going to come after me. One way or another, they're going to come after me, and they're probably going to lie about me, but I just need you to be aware of the fact that, it is going to happen. And it's going to happen because I fundamentally believe in what I believe. And I'm not afraid to stand up for what I believe. If I don't think there should be a high-density residency in somebody's backyard, I'm going to go to the council and talk about it. And, so unfortunately, I'm not going to make any accusations here. I will say that it is dark money. I think everybody knows that it's dark money. I think it's interesting that they will not disclose who's given them the money. And if you were a reputable, PAC, why not just say where you're getting your money? Why not just say where the money's coming from to send thousands of text messages, basically sharing with people a lie? Why do phone surveys? I mean, I can't tell you how many times, probably over 100 people have called me and said, I got this text message about you. What the heck is that? Or I got a phone survey that said you hired a child molester, or something along those lines. And if that's what you need to do to assure that your candidates are going to get in office, if that's how low you're willing to go, then once again, as I said about the presidential campaign, we've reached a new low. To accuse somebody of negligently hiring a child molester is beyond despicable. But Michelle Obama said it best: "You hit low, I'll hit high." And so I'm not going to go into, I'm not going to discuss where I think the money's coming from. I'm not going, I really don't even want to have to address this because I think that it's complete and utter garbage. And I feel like when I address it, I actually give it life. And I don't think it deserves life. I have a choice as a candidate how I'm going to react. I could hire an attorney, which may still happen. I could go out on a smear campaign. I could do a ton of things. But I'm choosing not to because this doesn't deserve 1 second of my time.
Okay, well then with that, let's not spend any more seconds on that.
Well, unfortunately,
you know which one this is.
Yeah. This is troublesome. And I fundamentally think it's troublesome for a number of reasons. Number one, I don't think we have a general plan. I don't think we have any idea, and there's no rhyme or reason as to where we're putting stuff, where we're putting it. And I don't think there could be a bigger mistake. 20, 30, 40 years ago or whatever, we had a chance to have a downtown in Santa Clara, a true downtown, and we squandered it. And I think we're now at a crossroads with development. If we don't start to get a strategic plan as to where we want to grow, and we can talk more about development later, if we don't get a strategic plan, then we are going to become a city that is completely, has no flow to it, has no traffic flow to it, and it's really going to feel like a I don't want to. What's it going to feel like? Like we're kind of like in The Death of a Salesman, when everything around him is kind of closing in on him. And I kind of feel with this development that people feel that the development is closing in on them.
So this is the one that was abutting Clay Street and Pierce Street. You came and spoke at
Okay. Well, specifically, this should have never gone in somebody's backyard. I went to council and spoke that night. And I told people that I'm running with, right, that I walk precincts with. And I told them straight to their face, if you vote for this and you put this in somebody's backyard, that's not moral. It's fundamentally wrong on every level. And I looked at the developers and I said, you wouldn't put it in your backyard. And I looked at the council, and I'm endorsed by 5 of the 7 council members. And I looked at those 5 council members and said, if you put this, or I said, you would not put this in your backyard. And you cannot put it in these people's backyard. So, again, people sometimes they think, oh, well, Tino's going to do whatever Mayor Gilmore wants him to do. The truth of the matter is nothing could be farther from the truth.
That was not what I wanted.
Is that your house?
No, that wasn't my house. I have a bunch of pictures on the slideshow, just so everybody knows. I have a bunch of pictures on the slideshow. I'm trying not to share same pictures with different candidates, so okay. I'm selective about which pictures I show.
Okay.
And the ones that I think that might be more relevant to, one candidate or the other. So I'm going to switch gears. I think we had quite a few pictures. How do you feel about that? It's pretty good? Pretty fun?
Yeah.
All right. Now, we're at section part 2 of the interview.
Mm-hmm.
That's your pitch.
Yep.
Give us, tell Santa Clarans. I'm gonna bring the camera a little closer so I don't have to keep coming back and checking to see if it's still working.
That's fine.
By the way, you have a whiteboard. If you'd like to use it, you're welcome to. You don't have to, but it's available, and there's the markers are right there. Again, it's up to you, entirely up to you. So, Tino, give us your pitch. Why should people vote for you? What are the top 2 issues that mean matter to you in running for council?
Yeah, so I'm going to give you the kind of the elevator speech, because I think everybody, hopefully by now, a lot of people have kind of seen what I'm about. First is transparency. I'm a fundamental, contrary to what Blue Pack says that I'm not transparent, I'm probably more transparent than a lot of the folks that are currently on the council. I think that it's imperative that citizens know what's going on in our city. And, at first it was kind of like transparency was, we need to be more transparent because, we had some backdoor deals and so on and so forth. But as I've been able to walk the precincts and get to know, hundreds, if not thousands of Santa Clarans, they are very, very disturbed with the fact that they don't know what's going on. And so we need to do a better job of being transparent. I think Mayor Gilmore has definitely steered the ship in the right direction, but the ship clearly isn't where it needs to be. There is a final destination that we have a ways to go before we get there. But I really do think that she's done a great job and done a great job starting the transparent council. And I think for me, I want to be a part of that team that continues it. For example, everybody gets a utility bill. In that utility bill should be one form that says, here are all the public hearings for the month of November. And this way, everybody in the city gets to chime in about a development, whether it's in your backyard or whether it's not. All citizens will get a chance to understand what's going on in all the different neighborhoods. And rather than just having, we go out and canvass a certain population and say, we're going to have a meeting and we want you to come and give us your thoughts, all Santa Clarans should have the opportunity to chime in. So that's the first thing. Second thing is obviously development. The truth is we are never going to stop developing. Even if we take old buildings and we want to modernize them, we're always going to be doing some sort of development in Santa Clara. But we need to stop and catch our breath. And we need to look at what's going in, where it's going in. And my fundamental question that I have for the council and for anybody else is, there's 15,000 or so, 14, 17, I've heard all different numbers of units that are yet to be built. They're in the pipeline. And the question I have is, who is saying, what information or data or studies are we looking at that dictates to us we need all that additional housing? And I know that I fundamentally, I know that Suds and I have a difference of opinion, which is a healthy difference of opinion. But without a game plan and having all those units in the pipeline, it's a recipe for disaster. It's a recipe that once we build these things, we are not going to get a redo. We cannot tear them down and start over. If somebody builds a building or a development in Santa Clara, it's going to be there for the next 100 years. So we've got to do our absolute best to ensure that if we're going to grow, that we grow based on the right statistics, the right studies, that we have a game plan, and that we put the additional development, whatever it is, and we put it in a place that we've shared with the city citizens. So we say, look, we're going to grow this area of the city and then stick to it. Not, well, gee, there's a piece of land over here and the developer wants to develop, so let's rubber stamp it and put it there because we can make a little bit of money. Making a little bit of money today is on my hierarchy of needs as far as development is down here. I want to make sure that our development is going to serve the citizens and that it's not going to create, or alter too much our way of life. Third is Measure R. I think most of you have heard about it. I would highly encourage you to support it. It basically says that no current park space can be used for anything other than what it's currently being used for, with about a 2/3 majority vote at a general election. And, Hosam was on the Charter Review Committee with me, and I can honestly say that this was very, very high on my agenda, making sure that this got on the ballot, because I think that no 4 people should be able to give away park space. I think that it should go to the citizens. I think the parks are for the citizens. And if somebody wants to do something different with the park, then let's have the majority of them tell us. That's probably my top. You said 2 things. I did 3.
Look, I'm not going to cut you off. I mean,
yeah.
you talk about what's important to you.
Yeah.
This video is about to cut off. It's at forward. Is it okay? It's good. It's recording. So we're going to. Okay, so we finished the pitch. Mm-hmm. Let's transition here into. Let's transition here into the hot seat. So. Okay. You already touched on a few of the things that I wanted to ask you about. I might probe a little bit more on some of them. Let's talk about. So beyond Parks and Rec, and you already mentioned Charter Review Committee. What other involvement have you had with the city?
Mm-hmm. Well, quite a bit. Obviously, yeah. As most know, I've been president of numerous nonprofit organizations. My involvement has also been at a level of in the last 18 months and I'll talk about the last 18 months because I think that's kind of relevant to what's going on today. Sure. I was on the Parks and Rec Cost Recovery Committee, where we looked at, we had the developers and the city come together to figure out what an acre of land actually costs, because that's obviously going to affect future development. I fought for 100% park recovery fees. For 30 years, we were not charging a park recovery fee. And the consequence of that is that we have an aging pool system. We have an international swim center that is almost beyond repair. We have parks that are over 60 years old that we haven't maintained or brought up to modernize. So some of the folks on the council wanted 65%. I wanted 100. And what that means is every time somebody develops in Santa Clara, they have to pay a fee that goes into parks, because obviously more people, we need more recreational space.
That's if they can't put a park in.
That's if they can't put a park in. So in lieu of putting a park, which for the most part there's not enough land for most of these developments to put a park, we have a fee to upgrade and to buy more land for parks. And so if we would have gone with 65% of that fee, we would have given anywhere from, and the estimates based on the amount of development were, close to 50 to 100 million. It was just off the chart how much we would be giving away and not putting on the developers. Now, some people have said, well, the problem with a park recovery fee is that people are going to have to end up paying the extra money when they buy the house. And, that might be true. But the general fund is not adequate enough to support our park system. It pays for the general necessities, but it doesn't pay for the upgrading. And our parks are in bad shape. So I wanted 100% cost recovery. I went with 3 council members, and we were fortunately able to get the 4th vote for 100% park recovery fees.
Talk to me then about, so because you touched on this, and I don't mean to cut you off, but you can put it in this because that's a related question. So you've been on Parks and Rec for how many years now?
I think it's
5,
5,
6?
5
so
or so.
you're almost done with your 6, I guess. So a term and a half, practically. How would you quantify or discuss your effectiveness as a Parks and Rec commissioner? Because you're now almost 6 years there, and now you're talking about Parks and Recovery fee, which is just in the last 18 months. I mean, where's the other time gone? And I think one of the other questions that are related to this is we are seeing, like you just mentioned, our parks are deteriorated. We talked about this just on the council meeting this week.
We did.
I even went up and talked about that, right? So, how do you reconcile between the effectiveness? Let's talk about, you can talk about the Parks and Rec Commission as a whole and its effectiveness in reconciling it with the Parks and Rec Department that is, staff managed, and kind of the differences, the need for repair, but staff is not able to accommodate that at a timeline that is maybe acceptable to residents. And also, specifically, Tino, Silva, your effectiveness as a Parks and Rec Commissioner in the 6 years.
So, the Parks and Recreation Commission is interesting because sometimes, and I'll speak for myself, I think we get things to discuss. Like, for instance, if there is a new park design, we will give the okay for a new park design. So the park on Monroe and San Tomas, we spent time doing that. And that's where I think we are able to take the concerns of the public and bring them back to staff and say, hey, look, if, for instance, recently we had there's going to be a park across the street from Central Park, and they wanted to put the park in. And they said, we're going to have an area for very young kids, and we're going to have an area for older kids. And so my question was, where's the bathroom or the restroom? And they said, well, there is no restroom. And I said, okay, so time out. We're going to have a brand new park. It's going to be, a public park, and it's going to be for young children. I mean, we're going to have an area for young children. So having children, I still kind of consider them children. When I would take my kids to the park, and we were potty training, at a moment's notice, they would say, I have to go pee. Or something else.
Yeah.
And you as a parent know you've got a very small window to get that kid to a restroom. Because if not, there's going to be a mess. So the developer came back and said, well, we've done all this, and we're going to put the plumbing up there so at phase 2, at some point in time, we can put a bathroom in. And my thing was, I can't approve this project without a restroom. I mean, and how much is it going to cost? Well, $100,000. Well, great. That's perfect. With all the development you're doing here, $100,000 is pennies on the dollar. If you're going to do it right, and we're going to do it right, it's like we didn't want to hold the developer accountable to put in a restroom because it was a little bit too much money. Are you kidding me? That's ridiculous. So that's one of the things. That's kind of how, as a Park and Rec Commission, we try to get involved. We do our best to influence. We also run the... Are
you just an influencer then? Or, at the end of the day, council is a decision maker. So
yes.
Are you an influencer to council? Are you an influencer to staff? A little bit of both? A little bit of neither?
I'm an influence to everybody, okay? Because I can't, and nobody can. Even a council member cannot do it on their own. That's why it's so imperative that you're able to work with other people, because that's what serving is all about. It's not about me. It's about my ideas or a colleague's ideas, and having that person convince everybody else why that's a good idea and why they should get behind it. So I think at the Parks and Rec Commission, I really like my Park and Rec commissioners that I work with, my fellow. I think they're dialed into the city. They're smart. They have the city's best interest at heart. But we are influencers oftentimes. When we get a chance to vote on something, then of course we're decision makers. But it's got to be a collective decision. Just because I want a bathroom in a park, 6 of my fellow colleagues may say, no, that's really not important. And so I'm going to make my best effort to convince them why I think it's important. But if they still come back and say, excuse me, no, it's not, then, I resign myself to say, okay, I did the best job I could based on what I think we need. But if it didn't go through, then I have to move forward. Part of being on the Parks and Rec Commission, what I've been able to do as well, that a lot of people don't know, is that we now have a scholarship. It took me 8 months. I made the initial motion. I followed through with it. I had to do the outreach. I had to go to the council once, and the council asked me to come back and do more work and more follow-up. And what this scholarship does is every kid who plays sports in Santa Clara that's not a resident, whether it's swimming, soccer, baseball, football, whatever, they will pay a $25 fee for the year.
So it's if they don't live in Santa Clara.
If they don't live in Santa Clara or go to Santa Clara Unified School District School.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Mm-hmm. That money now goes into the Wade Brummel Scholarship. That scholarship will now, and it will have enough money, so any kid in Santa Clara who wants to play organized sports, whether it's BMX, whether it's PAL soccer, whether it's Lions football, if they cannot afford the fees to play, this scholarship fund will now afford them the opportunity.
But they have to live in Santa Clara or go to Santa Clara.
They have to live in Santa Clara or go to a Santa Clara Unified School. Mm. So that was one of the things that I worked on, that I made the motion. And, my fellow colleagues in the Park and Rec, Commission were 100% behind it. So, even though I made the motion, we as a commission collectively had to approve it. Mm. And fortunately, I think we did unanimously. And then we sent it to council, and council unanimously approved it as well. So at some time, to answer your question, you're a decision maker, because you have to cast a vote one way or the other on what's before you. But a lot of times you're an influencer.
So you're giving me some examples that I didn't know about, which I think are very good stories. Mm-hmm. Let's take an example where there wasn't agreement. Mm-hmm. I was there because I was on the charter. So we talked about charter review committee. Okay, one of the proposals that came towards the end of the charter review committee was about the rules for calling a special meeting. We don't have to go into the details for the people on the video. They can go and watch or listen to the meetings. But what happened was somebody had made a motion that we leave the rule as is. Mm-hmm. Okay. And the vote was literally, we had an even number of people in the room that day. So it was evenly split. I think it was 6 and 6 or something like that. Yeah. So 6 and 6. Mm-hmm. And the motion failed because it didn't have a majority. So a second person, actually, that was me, the second person, made a motion that we should make a change. Mm-hmm. And at that point, when we had discussion on that motion, mm-hmm. you actually voted for the first one, in favor of the first one. So you actually voted not to make a change. So you flipped when the second motion came. Mm-hmm. So tell me, what does that tell about you? I mean, I've actually had somebody reach out to me to say that does he not have convictions in his choices? I mean, it's just in the span of 2 minutes you flipped your vote.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the deal?
Yeah. Well,
and by the way, just for the record, you weren't the only one to flip. I think there was another person else. There was two people who flipped. So.
I don't care if I am the only one to flip.
Sure.
I don't care if I am the only one to flip. Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, tell the person who asked that question about that, because it was a big deal for them.
Whomever that person is, I'll speak to that person now. I'm actually reading a book on leadership, and it was based on JFK and his leadership styles and some of the trials and tribulations he went through as a president. And one of the things JFK said is that you always, and this is as a president, but I believe this is as a candidate, or I believe this is as whether you're a leader in corporate America or a nonprofit organization, that you always have to reserve the right to change your mind. Okay? And I think what happens is, in politics or in business or whatever, people say, oh my God, he has no conviction, he changed. Well, let's talk about what it takes to move a city forward. It takes 7 people to come together, and it takes 7 people to have meaningful conversation. Now, if you put a motion out there and the motion says A, B, and C, and I'm for it, and somebody comes in and says, okay, that's not going to pass. Okay, it's not going to pass because of all these, it's 6-6. And somebody comes in with a new idea and says, well, okay, what if we looked at it from this perspective? Interesting. That's a different perspective that we hadn't originally talked about. I have to be able to reserve my right to take input and then take the information that I have at the time and make a decision. And I use that in therapy all the time. People say, I can't believe I did that. We make decisions with the information we have in front of us at that time. If I were to say, look, I'm black and white, and this is the way it is, you shouldn't vote for me. Because if I'm sitting up there on the council and I have a fundamental belief about something, but a number of citizens come in and make a really strong case against what I believe, and I said, I'm not going to listen to anything they have to say because I've already made up my mind. That's not representation. That's not true representation. Now, I can still maybe say, look, I hear what you're saying, but I still feel this way. But if I don't give myself, and if a council member or a business leader or a general, if they don't give themselves the opportunity to change their direction, then I think that is extremely worrisome. I would be very worried if we had a person that was so black and white that nothing anybody said to them could change their mind. Then you don't have collaboration.
Where do you draw the line between that and flip-flopping?
You know, again, you make decisions with the information you have at the time. To use your example, there was a motion. The motion said ABC. Mm-hmm. I said, okay.
You're for it.
I'm for it. I don't want to change, and I forget what it was.
This was about how many people needed to call a special meeting.
Yeah, how many? Because some are arguing 3, some are arguing 4.
Yeah, it's currently at 4.
And it's currently at 4. And I think the argument was for 3, and I said I don't want to change it. I think I said.
Yeah.
And then somebody came in and said, okay, we still have an issue here, and there's still discussion to be had. We extend the conversation. Somebody comes in and says, well, what if we looked at it from this, and this? Right. You know, and at that time, somebody else made a compelling argument. And I said, based on that, that makes sense. So now that I'm looking at it from a different perspective because somebody gave me a different perspective, I factored that into my decision and said, I can actually get behind this now.
Well, I think one of the things, not to get into the weeds of the specific one, was it was something that affected how council members were able to call meetings.
Yeah.
And I think at that point you had made a comment which was just let them, we'll pass it so that they can have it as part of their discussion and they can make the ultimate decision.
Well, ultimately, so how the charter committee works is this: we have an issue. Okay, we had an issue with how many members can call a special meeting.
Yeah, that was the one I was on.
So that's our issue. We went back and forth, and we were deadlocked. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, the question is, it was still an important topic, right? It was so important we were split 6-6.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But we were not the decision maker.
Mm.
We were the influencer. We were saying, this is what we fundamentally would like you to look at, the council. Whether it's Measure R, whether it's term limits, whether it's whatever was on our agenda.
Mm.
We were simply giving a recommendation to council. And they had to look at the feasibility of it, and if they collectively thought we should do something about it. So now I remember exactly what it was.
Yeah.
It was, we changed the parameters of it a little bit,
Yep.
But then I said, well, look, let's let the council decide, because we're obviously, if we leave it as this, they're not going to get anything because we're split.
Right.
So this issue is not going to go before them. In order to get the issue before them, I believe I was the one who switched.
Yeah.
One other. Because I said, look, this is still, we're asking them to look at this. That's what we're doing.
Okay.
And if we send it 6-6, then
it's not going to go anywhere. Well, it doesn't go to them.
Then it wasn't going to go to them.
Yeah.
And I felt that it was an important enough issue to go to them. So I said, look, I'm willing to change my vote in order to get that to them so they can look at it, and they can look at it from the perspective of being council members, how special meetings are called, and would this be a positive or negative. They were the best suited to make that decision. And so I changed my vote to get it to them so they could have that decision.
No, for everybody watching, ultimately they didn't go with it. But that's a story for a different day. So let's since we're on the topic of measures, let's talk about the measures. Mm-hmm. You were on the Charter Review Committee, mm-hmm. obviously, so you're very familiar with the measures. I'm going to give a very brief snapshot for people on some of the certain measures so that, in case they don't know what it is. Measure O is about council salaries. Mm-hmm. So the proposal or what's on the ballot is that council member salaries are going to be increased to $2,000 mm-hmm. and mayor to $2,500, mm-hmm. and that there would be a salary setting commission to adjust it every 2 years, mm-hmm. up with a max of 10% mm-hmm. cap, or down with no floor. Mm-hmm. Yes or no on O?
I'm going.
How do you feel about it?
Yeah. So number one, our council members are wickedly undercompensated for the amount of time that they put in. I mean, it's not even remotely close. I mean, it's practically probably less than minimum wage, and I don't think that's fair. That's why we sent something that.
But it's a service job, no?
It is a service job, but when you look at a service job, you say to yourself, "I'm having to make decisions on $1 million stadiums, on hundreds of $1 million electrical. Close to all in all,
sure.
we're managing billions of dollars."
Mm-hmm.
And when you have somebody who is at a meeting on Tuesday night from 5 o'clock to 1 in the morning, when you have study sessions and you're not home, when you have weekends that you have to get prepared for a council meeting, that's time that is taken away from your family. And I feel fundamentally that expertise should be rewarded. If we were actually paying a realistic salary, we would be probably in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, because that's what executives who manage organizations of this magnitude, if not even in arguably millions.
San Jose
right?
gets
full-time
council members.
So we sometimes forget that, yes, it is a service, and we don't go into it for the money. I think right now it's, what, $600 a month? $800 a month. So clearly, for the amount of time we spend, anybody who wants to do this job has to come from a service perspective. If you're doing this job to get rich, trust me, I can help you find a number of other jobs where you can make a lot more money. We put together something and we agreed on $1,500. And then I think one council member decided that he felt it should be $2,000 and got consensus that everybody else thought it should be $2,000. So I'm going to vote yes on O, because I still fundamentally feel that the amount of time and the amount of stress and the amount of pressure that council members are under to manage this city has to be rewarded financially as well.
Okay, Measure P. Measure P is about term limits. So right now we have what you could consider pseudo-term limits, which is basically you can't run more than 2 consecutive cycles.
Yeah.
But as soon as you sit out 2 years, you reset the limits on all your... Now, the Measure P is proposing 2 lifetime term limits, 2 terms for each office, end of story.
End of story. Well, I think
yes
that...
or no, and why?
Absolutely. Well, absolutely yes. And I'm not going to get into my opponent.
That's okay. We don't want that.
But I will say that that without having term limits, we arguably are giving people an opportunity to serve for 30, 40 years.
Is that bad?
Well, it depends on one's ideology. Some people say, no, it's great, because obviously if they're doing a great job, like we would have loved to have had, some people argue, certain presidents it's too bad they couldn't have run longer because they did a great job. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing if the person is actually representing the citizens and actually doing a decent job.
So are you throwing the baby out with the bathwater just because of the risk that somebody might do a bad job?
So what I'm saying is that if somebody is doing a phenomenal job, okay, then the question is, wow, that kind of sucks that we can only have them in here for so long. However, my fundamental belief is that term limits are extremely important, because I think in order to move forward, you need to have difference of opinion. And I think even with our president, we say 8 years and that's it. We're going to go in a different direction. We give people the opportunity to lead. And so to have somebody in there for 20, 24 years, my question comes up is, we get career politicians and they think a certain way, they have certain relationships, they built up certain relationships to the point where they feel obligated to those relationships, and that cycle never breaks. So I think with somebody new on board, you get a difference of opinion. You get somebody who has a certain expertise in who's been in business for 16 years, who's had to run, large departments, who brings their nonprofit experience to the table, who has a different perspective on development, who is going to bring a different perspective to the conversation. And I think that's healthy. I think that's healthy. I think that's why we change the president every 8 years, because we need to have that different perspective.
Every fourth, they don't. Yeah.
Or every fourth, or arguably every whatever if they get impeached. So when I look at this as far as the measure, we voted unanimously in the charter committee. Everybody, I think, with the exception of one person, who happened to be the sister of a politician, who was not for term limits.
Well, let's not talk about others.
But everybody was unanimous, and we need term limits in Santa Clara. And especially in Santa Clara, because I think the old way of doing business, the old Santa Clara way, people are fed up with. People are just tired of it. And unfortunately, name recognition, oftentimes, people will just check the box because they recognize the name, but they don't know what the candidate really is about. And the name recognition does stand for something, and that's why most incumbents don't lose. It's because people recognize the name and automatically vote. But they don't quite know why they're doing it. So, again, I think change is healthy. I think change is what moves things forward. I think that's why, you look at a lot of, most corporations even change their leader to get a different perspective, a fresh perspective, go in different directions.
Measure Q. Measure Q talks about how do you fill a vacancy, and right now the you're familiar with it because you're in the committee. The council has the option of appointing somebody, which only requires a simple majority, and if they don't, then it goes to an election. Maybe it's a special election, maybe it goes to general election. It's not defined in the charter. Measure Q proposes if the council so chooses to appoint somebody, it has to be a supermajority, which might better result in a consensus candidate rather than a polarizing candidate. And if there is somebody appointed, that person only fills that seat until the next general election, and then has to be chosen by the people. In favor or against?
Yeah. I'm in favor of it. I think for the most part, our citizens should choose their elected officials. I know there are times when, and obviously we just went through this where there was an opening and we had to get somebody appointed. I don't think it's fair, some of the stuff that has been said about Kathy, who was appointed. I don't think it's fair whatsoever. And oftentimes people say, well, that's just because Lisa is putting in who she wants. I think Kathy,
it had to go to approval for the council anyway. So,
and that's what people forget is that the council approved it.
And I think it was unanimous, or no? Was there one?
It was pretty close. There might have been one who dissented.
Okay.
But nevertheless, the point is that I think all elected officials should be elected. And an appointment is only to fill a vacancy until we can actually have, a general election. To call a special election is extremely, extremely expensive.
Okay, Measure R. Measure R, protecting parks and open spaces.
So that was something that I worked in, and
yeah.
Excuse me, that was one of my was very high on my agenda. The fact that the Niners tried to take the soccer park through the mayor through a backdoor deal was really what kind of put this to the forefront of my interest, being on the Charter Review Committee. And I think what we've effectively done is I'm absolutely for it. I think we've actually put the decision back in the hands of citizens, and I think when we can do that, we should do that. Again, as I said, I think parkland is not for 4 people to give away. Thousands of people use it, and for 4 people to say we're going to take it away from you, it just didn't make sense to me.
Okay. Yes. So yes.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, you talked a little bit about you just brought it up, the whole soccer park issue. One of the, and I want to ask you about specifically your role in that, because I know you were quite involved, including some articles that were written on newspapers, highlighting your involvement. So I want you to talk a little bit about that, and then there's also been some questions that I received about, or concerned that the organization Stand Up for Santa Clara asks for transparency, but they're not. The claim is that they're not transparent, and they want to know what your role has been with Stand Up, and is that? Yeah. So talk about that.
Yeah. So let me answer both those questions. First question was my involvement with the soccer park. So the soccer park was a collective effort, and I don't want to say that I alone did it, because that would be the farthest thing from the truth. I alone did not save the soccer park from being put in the hands of the Niners. It was a collective effort from a number of people within within the soccer community. It was also, there were a number of council members.
Oh, we're sorry. Were you in a leadership position at the soccer community at the time? Okay.
I was president of youth soccer.
Oh, okay.
So clearly, I was the spokesperson for soccer, but there were a lot of people from my board. There were council members that also helped. And really, to be honest with you, the people who saved that soccer park was not me personally, but it was the hundreds of people, whether it was a soccer mom or soccer dad, or people that had no affiliation with soccer, and the kids that came to that meeting to tell the mayor what they thought. Those are the real heroes. I did a ton to organize it. Yeah, I had to go on the news, and I had to be interviewed, and I had, I was in newspapers and all that kind of stuff, and there was a lot of pressure at that time. But the soccer park was ultimately saved by the people, and I don't want to pretend to say that I was the one who did it. I had an instrumental part in the fight, but had those people not come to council, those kids, those moms, those dads, citizens that had nobody, in the soccer community. If they didn't come and do it, I don't know the outcome would have been the same. Second, Stand Up for Santa Clara.
Transparency with Stand Up and who they are and what's your involvement.
Stand Up for Santa Clara came from the whole soccer debacle because we didn't feel that there was an organization in Santa Clara that was going to actually tell people what was going on. And so Stand Up for Santa Clara was, we wanted to get citizens involved. We wanted to let them know what was going on in the city. Since I decided to run for office, I have no affiliation with Stand Up for Santa Clara.
So were you one of the founders of Stand Up then?
Yes.
In your work? Okay.
Yes. And again, we did it when we were, right after the 49ers tried to take the stadium or the soccer park, and then when the NFL and the city wasn't being transparent with what they were going to do with the soccer park for the Super Bowl. So there were a few organizations in Santa Clara at that time, but we really wanted to start something so people could get a straight answer, and they could, they would get an honest answer as to what was going on. As I said, I have no involvement in Santa Clara. I can't have any involvement in Stand Up for Santa Clara, especially running for office. It would be a complete conflict of interest. So I have removed myself. And quite frankly, to be honest, when Stand Up sends something out, I look and I get something from Stand Up and I'm like, oh, what's this? I don't have any discussion with them as far as what's going to go on, what they're going to promote, what they're going to share with the public. But I can say that what has been shared with the public has been true. From everything that I have seen, it has been accurate. Now, some people may not want to hear what Stand Up has to say, but again, there's always going to be people that are going to disagree.
So let's pivot a little bit. Let's talk about Blue Pack. I was going to talk about it a little bit later, but you're bringing it up here and saying the statement you just said, everything that they've said is true. So Blue Pack, I know you already started to touch upon it, but I want to ask a specific question about the claim that the money is coming from the 49ers. It hasn't been substantiated yet that who does the money come from. Is that just speculation, or are you aware if they have more information that hasn't been shared? I mean, what's now? I don't think most people who know what's going on can defend the behavior of Blue Pack, and I think you touched upon that. I'll give you an opportunity to talk more if you'd like, but talk about how Stand Up has maybe your involvement with Stand Up is since you've run for. Talk about that. Okay. You made the statement that everything that Stand Up has done or has said in the last, since I guess the election season has started, has been true, but there has been a lot of questions about the validity of whether or not it's substantiated. If they can definitively say that the money came from the 49ers,
right? So
a lot of very wordy, but I think you're getting my question.
Yeah. So in 2014, the Niners had certain candidates that they were going to promote, and there's zero doubt in anybody's mind who the Niners were going to promote.
This is for the 14 race?
This is 2014.
Okay.
And at first, we kind of knew that there were a bunch of mailers that were going out, and we were getting these mailers, and on the bottom it said, the California Apartment Association. And so it was kind of like, why would the Apartment Association spend all this money on these mailers? Well, come to find out, when they filled out their financial forms, we were able to trace back $70,000 to the San Francisco 49ers. And on behalf,
and that was traceable.
That was traceable. Okay. So the 49ers put $70,000 into this PAC, and this PAC in turn sent out tens of thousands of dollars worth of mailers for these three candidates. Okay. Now, is that a bad thing? It's legal. Okay, it's legal. But here was the fundamental problem. As soon as they had 4 votes, and they felt they had 4 votes, the first thing they did was try to take the soccer park. Okay? So, fast forward 2 years. Here we have an organization, Blue Pack. Blue Pack is a 503c4, I think it is, and therefore they don't have to disclose where they're getting their money from.
Under 50K.
Yeah, under 50K. Okay? So...
Well, actually, I think they don't have to disclose it at all, but under 50K, the reporting requirements are even more relaxed.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So, supposedly, they put in $49,650 or something ridiculous. So, what organization would put money into an organization that slanders candidates, that basically calls out somebody because her last name happens to be Japanese, but the color of her skin is white? Somebody who happens to be married to an officer who works a ton of overtime, does a phenomenal job, has a ton of respect from not only his fellow officers, but from the community. And those people are slandered. Those people are slammed. Those people are not good people for Santa Clara. You know, because I was a volunteer and I was president of youth soccer, which took arguably 15 to 20 hours a week of my time, and I got no compensation for it, no special favors for it. I put myself out there to make sure that we run a top-notch league for our kids. And somebody can come and say out of the blue, well, Tino hires child molesters. You know, I would just like the organization that put money in that blue pack to stand up and say we're the one doing it. Because the interesting thing is, the candidates that are being supported, that are quote-unquote good for Santa Clara, all have ties to the 49ers. Whether they were consultants, whether they were, one of them was instrumental in getting the contracts written for the stadium. One of them was instrumental in giving them a 40-year lease for a practice facility for $2,300 a month. Okay? And yet these are the people that are the good guys. You know, I asked one of the folks running, and I won't say who, I asked this individual what their opinion was on rent reset. And the person said, it's in arbitration, so I can't have an opinion. Blue Pack is supporting that candidate. Okay? So when you kind of peel back, you know, the layers of the onion a little bit, right, to kind of, you know, you start peeling back the leaves on the artichoke to get to the heart of the matter, you begin to see that the candidates on Blue Coat that they are for have always been in favor of the 49ers. Who have the 49ers, and who are they? Who is Blue Pack trying to slander? The mayor, she's been vocal about the 49ers. Debbie, she's been vocal about the 49ers in the soccer park. Kathy, because they know that Kathy is not going to capitulate to what the 49ers want. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out
but you
what's
still
going
say
on.
It's still not. It's maybe I could say it's highly plausible, but there hasn't.
Sure, it is.
As you haven't been able to, as you said, trace back in 2014 the 70,000 that came from the Niners
until after the election was done,
when the reporting documents came
out, right? Then we figured out. At the time, they were sending out and we were like, well, who's putting money in this pack? Well, the Niners say we don't talk about our political dealings. When they were asked this time, did you put money into Blue Pack? We don't talk about stuff like that. Well, why don't you just flat say no? Why don't you come out and say, hey, we'll go on record and tell you we have nothing to do with this. We're not putting any money into Blue Pack, okay? And we're getting this negative press for something we didn't do. Why not come out and say it?
Let me. The reason I'm a little bit worried here because it's a little bit frustrating. This is the hot seat, so I'm going to ask you.
Yeah, go for it.
A tough question here.
Go for it.
Don't you think it's a little bit disingenuous to say that here's a scenario where you've been libeled and slandered, okay, by the same organization that we're talking about here,
that's right,
okay, and yet you will come out and claim that the Niners are behind this without the concrete evidence, and then underline concrete because. Like you're saying, there might be substantial or circumstantial evidence that alludes that they're doing it, but isn't that? I mean, aren't you doing the same?
No, because here's the thing: people are saying, am I frustrated that I'm slandered? Okay, well, of course I am, but people can come and ask me the question: hey, did you do this? No. Well, they said you did. I understand they said I did, but the answer is no, I haven't. Do I think that it's disingenuous? Yes, I think it is disingenuous to stoop to that level. That you would make such a ludicrous accusation, as the majority of the citizens that I've talked to think it's ludicrous. Okay? So you can come and ask me, hey, these guys over here at Blue Pack are saying this about you, is it true? Now I can say, I don't want to talk about it. Well, why don't you want to talk about it? Oh, I don't want to talk about it. Okay, so isn't there reasonable suspicion? Well, did you hire a child molester? I don't want to talk about that. Did you harbor a child molester? I don't want to talk about that. Did you not tell the parents of what was going on? I don't want to talk about that. Okay, so what picture does that paint in the minds of citizens? Why is he not willing to come forth and be honest? So I ask of the 49ers, are you the ones that put money into Blue Pack? We don't want to talk about it. So is there reasonable deniability? I mean, is Is there reasonable?
Is there plausible deniability?
Is there plausible deniability that is going in there? Well, do this for me. I will stop insinuating that it's the 49ers when they come forward and give me a definitive, no, we are not putting money in that PAC. Now, can the money easily come from somebody else, and can they launder it 100 different ways? Absolutely. But when asked, they always say, we don't talk about those matters. So most of the residents that I talk to come to the conclusion, if you look at who they are, who Blue PAC is endorsing, who Blue PAC is not endorsing, who Blue PAC thinks would be great for the city, that all have relationships with the 49ers, and those people that aren't necessarily willing to give the city away, but want to have a good relationship with the Niners, want to work with them, but they're going to be treated as, I mean, we took out $700 million in loans so they could have a stadium, and their valuation goes up 60 and 69% respectively, according to some studies, over 2 years since that stadium was built. They're the 10th most valuable franchise, tied with the Los Angeles Lakers in all of sports throughout the world. And yet, we took out the $700 million, and our general fund gets 2.5 or 2.8, and they're making hundreds of millions of dollars. It's just, people are curious. People are frustrated. And so, it should come as no surprise when you look at the people that are not being, I'm not into lowering the 49ers rent. I'll be honest. I will listen to the arguments if we get them. And of course I will listen and factor in everything that's put before me. But I'm not a fan of lowering rent for a stadium that generates hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue for an organization. I mean, why would I be? It makes no sense. But do the math. Let's just say $3 million, $3.5 million over 38 years.
Are you taking advantage of them just because they make a lot of money? I mean, would you do the same thing to another big corporation and company in Santa Clara like Intel or Nvidia?
Absolutely.
Because they make a lot of money, I'll just charge you more rather than fair market value.
So let's talk about fair market value, right? How much money would we be making if we put development in there? Where is all that rent money going? The rent money is not going into the general fund. The rent money is paying off loans, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we're basically paying off loans that we took. And if we do a rent reduction, it's going to take us even longer to pay off those loans. Okay? Look at most cities. There's a Stanford professor, and I am missing, forgetting his name.
That's okay.
But he's done study after study that has shown that stadiums subsidized by municipalities typically, oftentimes, don't fare well as far as the finances go. So, here we have a 40-year lease on 10 acres of land for a practice facility, okay? And we charge $26,000 a year. Now we have something that was set up.
You couldn't get a one-bedroom apartment with that.
And no, you can't. Now we have a stadium that's $24 million a year, and they want it reduced to 20 or whatever the case is, okay? Yet, when it comes to safety, everybody wants to argue, oh, no, we're going to pay for safety out of this fund and that fund and this fund and that fund. Well, wait a minute. Why aren't the Niners or the stadium, management company paying for safety, paying what it really costs? And yet we have a 3% increase or something like that for our safety as every year, but yet for rent it stays the same for 40 years. Now, how many folks in Santa Clara County have rent that is going to stay the same for 30 years? Okay. Now, one can say, okay, we have a mortgage and we made an agreement and that mortgage is set for the next 30 years, and that's fine. But here's the thing. There's a provision that says we can reset the rent. The Niners want it because they're a business, and I understand that. Mm-hmm. They're a business. They're going to fight for rent reduction. I don't blame them for doing it. I think that's what most companies would do. But when I look at what that rent is actually paying for, and my assumption is that the rent is trying to pay down the $700 million that we took out. I have a hard time for a company making hundreds of millions of dollars with a valuation of well over $1 billion, and a large part of that is because of a subsidized stadium. I have a hard time for somebody coming back and saying, thank you for subsidizing it, thank you for taking on the burden of paying off the loan, thank you for putting yourself out there, and arguably the city's not at risk, but that remains to be seen. Thank you for doing all of that for us. And now after you've done that, now we want to actually have a little rent reduction on top of it. I mean, how much more can we give an organization? So to answer your question about Intel, if we had an agreement with Intel and the city took out $200 million in loans to build a building for Intel, okay, and to a factory, and Intel is making a ridiculous amount of money, and part of the reason they're making a ridiculous amount of money is because they're given a very fair rent, and they come back after we subsidize their building, and because of that building, they're making hundreds of millions, and we come back and they say, we want to pay even less. That's where I think people have a fundamental problem, is that you want to pay less than what you originally agreed. And now we're trying to fudge all the numbers to make it work, which is also ridiculous. Okay? We have a stadium. We took out a tremendous amount of money, more than probably most other cities have ever taken out to build a stadium. And now the person that is going to help us pay it back wants a reduction on that. So do the math of $3 million or $4 million over 38 years. And if you do that, it's about $130, $140 million. Maybe it's $120 to $140 million. That's not going to pay off the stadium. Where's that money going? It's going right back in their pocket. They're making even more money because of a stadium that they had very, very little financial interest in.
I have some more questions. It's at 44 minutes. It's going to cut off in 1 more minute. So I'm going to push stop. We're going long on this. The no time limit is really working out here. I'm going to push stop and record right away. Here we go. Okay, we're back. Okay, I wanna ask a question here about the soccer park. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm gonna make some statements and correct me if I'm wrong. This is my understanding. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to lead you into anything here. So the youth soccer park is a public park.
Yes,
it belongs to the city. It is a public park.
Mm-hmm.
So my question here is, who manages it?
The city.
So do they manage it through the Parks and Rec department?
Yes. Yeah. Miley is the one who basically is in charge of managing the soccer park.
So there has been, and I actually received this in email. There is some sentiment that the Santa Clara Youth Soccer Park is monopolized by the Santa Clara Youth Soccer League. Mm-hmm. So there's a monopoly on it.
Yeah. Well. So let's.
I mean, is the soccer league?
No, of course not.
I mean, is it a city-run organization? It's not.
No. So here's the deal. We share the soccer park down the middle with PAL, when PAL has fall soccer. PAL only plays like 10 to 12 weeks of soccer. When they're there, we split down the middle. They get 2 days of practice a week. We get 2 days of practice a week. We each get one field, and then in the past
for game days.
Mm-hmm. In the past, there's been where. Because we have, at one point, when I was president, 1,700 kids, and they had roughly 700. So we said, look, you can run the snack shack, and all the money you make from the snack shack is yours to keep, and we'll take the second field to play games because we have so many games to play because of the number of people that are in our league.
Versus PAL.
Also, I'll have you know that we also share the soccer park with Mission College. We also share the soccer park with the high schools if they want to use it. We share the soccer park with, there's one other organization that also uses the soccer park.
Who determines, that's fair, mm-hmm. But who determines who gets to share it, quote
unquote? There's a priority list, and based upon residency, based upon being based in Santa Clara, you reach a certain level for residents, right? And, not residents, I'm sorry, a certain level of...
It's like a point system almost.
Criteria being met.
Okay.
And once you meet that criteria, then you're either priority 1, 2, 3, or 4. But PAL and Santa Clara Youth are both priority 1. So because we both meet the criteria. Yeah. So when PAL is playing and we're playing our fall season, we share the soccer park.
Yeah.
Now, if at 8:00 PAL says, say that they have Monday, Wednesday practice, and at 8:00 they say we don't have any teams practicing after 8:00. Then we ask them permission and the city permission if some of our older teams can practice at 8:00, 8 to 9:30. But PAL has to say yes. And if PAL says, no, we're going to use it all night, then they use it all night. That's the agreement we have.
Who determines the criteria list? Is it the city?
The Parks and Rec, we've had a criteria for 10 years.
So it's Parks and Rec Commission, or is it the commission or the staff? Staff. Okay, so the city's Park and Rec department.
The Park and Rec Commission may have, years ago, set a criteria. I wasn't on the commission when they did, or if they did. But criteria has been set for a decade.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then in terms of... So there is a clear process that another organization can go and approach. Who do they approach? The city?
City.
They approach the city, and then they can basically see where they fall within the qualifications and petition or whatever.
That's right. And the city is where, so we have a field coordinator. We give the city a schedule, and the city says yes or no. So there are times when we do maintenance on the fields. So we have no access to the fields because we're doing maintenance. We don't schedule the soccer park. We send a schedule to the city and say, this is how we'd like to use the soccer park for this month. These are all of our practices. These are all of our games. PAL does the same thing. They send it. A school, a Santa Clara school could do the same thing. And then what the city does is it says, okay, yeah, we're going to fill in the blanks, and they come back and approve. If they say, hey, this weekend we can't because there's a special event or whatever, then we have to take those games that would have been played and play them either away or play them somewhere else.
Does the city do this exclusively with the soccer park, or do they do this with other facilities, city-owned facilities, like the swim center, for example?
Swim center is managed by the swim club.
Okay.
So they have a lease with the city, and they kind of manage it, but we only have one swim club there.
Okay.
Right? We don't have
There's no
three.
competing.
No,
yeah, okay.
there's no competing, which we don't want anyways.
Yeah.
So the swim club is there. The swim
what
club
about tennis
manages it.
courts?
Tennis courts are both,
or the golf club. Which is not going to be there.
There's a third party that manages it on behalf of the city.
So it's kind of like every scenario has its own.
It's a little different. So Washington Park and Townsend Field, those are both. Now Washington Park is exclusively used by boys baseball, and also the high schools play there. But even though those are the only entities that play there and they don't overlap, the Parks and Rec Department is still the ones who approve games.
And they manage the criteria.
All of it. If it rains and the field's getting really wet and we don't want to tear it up, the Parks and Rec will say no games today. So even if Santa Clara Youth, or even if Santa Clara Boys Baseball said, hey, it's raining, but screw it, we're going to play anyways, we have to get this game in, the city is the final decision. And if they say no, it's no. Right?
Okay.
All right.
These are good questions.
Okay, I'm glad.
I'm actually glad people are asking.
I was up till like 2 a.m. Compiling and coming up with new ones.
I was sleeping at 2 a.m. I was tired.
Okay, let's see here. One of the pictures, and we talked about this, 1890 El Camino, the one that was on Clay and Pearson. You went, and I was there. You went and talked. I saw you talk at city council meeting about. So I can get the argument that you don't want some of these things in your backyard, especially with the half block lots, right? Yeah. But aren't our major transit corridors or arteries where you want the additional housing to go? I mean that's where you want them to go, right? For the traffic reduction. No. Okay, talk to me about this.
Well,
I thought that was a given. Okay.
Yeah. First of all, that's what I think a lot of the planners have said. Put it on the El Camino because that's a thoroughfare through the city. Well, El Camino, Homestead, it kind of runs east to west.
Sure.
Okay. So yesterday I refereed a football game at Homestead High School. Mm-hmm. It took me 35 minutes to get from Homestead High School to my house, which is on San Tomas and Benton. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what happens is, you put all these people, hundreds or thousands of people that are going to live on the El Camino. How are they going to get to their property? Through the El Camino. So you're already taking a bottleneck. That's already a bottleneck, right? It has been for quite a while. And you invite thousands of people to live on that bottleneck. And so when you say that, well...
So where do you put them?
Well, the argument is this. Where do we put them? I will say from an 80,000-foot level, we put them where the jobs are. How many jobs, okay, that are going to pay someone enough for an $800,000 mortgage or a $4,000 rent are on the El Camino?
Yeah.
There's not.
Those are usually service jobs.
They're service jobs.
Restaurants
or
shops.
Or coffee shops or small boutique stores or whatever the case is. So none of that is actually, nobody is going to live there and walk to work. Okay? So we are trying to beautify the El Camino. Okay. How... I did this the other day. I was driving by and I looked at somebody's front door, and the front door opens right up to the El Camino. And I'm saying to myself, honey, let's go sit on the porch and have coffee and watch the 7,000 people driving 100 miles an hour down El Camino go in front of our house. You know, it's like, wow. So, I think at an 80,000 foot level, we need to look at the general plan and we need to put housing where it makes sense. You know, I will go on record and say I am not a true believer of if you put people by the light rail, they are going to take light rail. I don't fundamentally believe that. People will take light rail if it puts them right in front of where they work. And if it doesn't put them right in front of where they work, they are not going to take light rail. Okay, why is that? Well, today it's raining. People are not going to walk a half a mile to a bus stop or half a mile from a train stop to work. And ask, you know, take my wife. She gets off at 6, 7 o'clock in the winter. Is she going to walk half a mile or a quarter mile to get to the train, to get to a bus stop in, you know, when it's dark outside? I mean, no, she's not. She's going to drive her car. So just because she's a half a mile away from the train station, people automatically assume everybody's going to walk. Well, that assumption is just that. It's an assumption.
Okay, cool. Let's see here. What else do I have? Man, this is going long. At the CAC forum, and actually you did mention this briefly today, the CAC forum, you suggested the Santa Clara Way is lost. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people took some offense to that. So tell me a little bit about, you know, it can't all be bad, right? I mean, the Santa Clara Way has shaped the city in what it is today.
Yeah. Tell
me a little bit about what was good about the Santa Clara Way, and then now you're suggesting that it's changed, that it's lost.
Well, so look at it from.
Yeah. This is it's a very sensitive topic for people because it talks about our city and the way things are done around here.
The question is, what does the Santa Clara Way mean to you? Okay, Santa Clara Way means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Here's what I think, and I was at a forum the other night where the Santa Clara Way. Well, you know, if you look at our Art and Wine Festival, if you look at our barbecue we have in the summer, if you look at our tree lighting ceremony, if you look at our, you know, the programs that we have in our recreation department, we do a lot of things. You know, the music in the park. We do a lot of things that are great. Our fireworks show is great. That's the Santa Clara Way of doing its best to provide for citizens, right? And to give citizens a place to go. That's the Santa Clara Way that I want to preserve, okay? But talking about it from a political perspective, let's talk about the Santa Clara Way, okay? The Santa Clara Way has long been people going in behind closed doors and making deals, okay? We saw that with the soccer park. That was as plain as day what happens in Santa Clara politically. The Santa Clara Way was, you know, giving the 49ers a $2,000 a month, whatever it was, practice facility way back when. That's okay, right? Because at the time, we didn't really have a whole lot of development out there. It made sense. But that was in lieu of them paying hundreds of millions of dollars to build a road to their practice facility, which they paid none.
Supposedly, and the utility improvements.
And the utilities and everything else. The city council agreed to pay that fee. So that's the Santa Clara Way, okay? The Santa Clara Way is having lobbyists. Now we have to register as a lobbyist. Well, some people think it doesn't apply to them. So they keep doing what they do, right? Lobbyists can go in and not register to lobby, and they come back and say, well, I didn't know I was a lobbyist. Well, that's the old Santa Clara Way.
I'm going to cut you off. Let's not talk about opponents. Keep going, though.
So that's not what I want to be the Santa Clara Way. The Santa Clara Way was, you know, we're going to develop anywhere and everywhere, and we're going to rubber stamp it. And if it goes in your backyard, too bad. That's what the developer wants. That's the Santa Clara Way. Look at all of our development we have today. Is it being done by the general plan, or is it being done by ad hoc? Like, well, here's a piece of land the developer wants to develop. We're going to make a little bit of money. Boom, yeah, let's do it. That's the Santa Clara Way. And when you look at people that are frustrated with the development, ask yourself, who was on the council that brought all this development to where we are today? So that's part of the Santa Clara Way that I want to change. I don't want us to give away land to people. I don't want to give away sweetheart deals. I don't want to put development wherever the developer wants to develop. You know, I don't want to mislead or take something behind closed doors and decide on it without the public being able to weigh in on it. Okay? That's the old Santa Clara Way of how a lot of stuff got done here. That's what I mean by the Santa Clara Way, is we need to change the Santa Clara Way. It's old, it's done. And by the way, I think we should be doing fundamentally more for our citizens. Like, instead of having one night a year where we have music in the park by Franklin Mall, why are we not having 4, 5, or 6? Why are we not having them on the north side? Okay? Why aren't we doing that? So there's a lot of things for citizens that I think we could do even more for our citizens. And yes, it's going to take a collaboration of people to come together to do it, but we can do more. We should do more. Look at how many people go to the Art and Wine. I mean, I work in the booth. We work 16 hours straight and don't get a break. So many people are there enjoying it. That's why they keep coming back. It's because Santa Clara does things, and when they do them well. Well, let's do more of them. I'm not saying we have to have 2 Art and Wines, we don't have to have 2 city barbecues, we don't have to have 2 fireworks shows, but let's be innovative and look at how many people come out to our citywide events. A lot. And it doesn't cost an arm and a leg to do more.
Okay, I have 2 more questions because we're really going over time, but I'm enjoying this conversation. Looks like you're enjoying it too. Okay, 2 more questions. So, and I'm gonna cut you off in the last one. This one, it's also relevant here. So, without talking about anybody specifically, talk to me about the seat system here with council. Okay, specifically your seat 4, the one that you're vying for, it saw a candidate shuffle this cycle, and it's certainly not the first time that Santa Clara has seen a candidate seat shuffle happen. What are your thoughts on the seat system in general?
So I think the seat system, this is really, you're asking 2 questions. You're asking, what do I think of the seat system and representation, and what do I think of the seat system as far as people jumping seats?
Well, I think they're tied.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's tied because it's defined by the seat system.
So I'm gonna answer that 2 ways. One, I don't like our current system, and here's why. There's no true representation. For instance, if I live on Los Padres in Benton, okay, and I have an issue with the 4-way stop because people are just running it, right, and they're just blowing right through it, and we have a ton of kids. We have an elementary school and a little league and a public park right on that intersection. Who do I call? Because I can call, well, who's in seat 1, who's in seat 6, who's in seat 4. So people send it to the council and mayor, and guess what happens? Nobody owns it. It can go, oh, yeah, that's great. Oh, yeah, we need to work on that. Okay, who's going to work on it? I don't know. Are you going to work on it, Hosam? Maybe Tino will. Well, Kathy, do you have time? And nobody owns it. But if I'm in seat 4, and that happens to be my little district that I'm responsible for, and somebody says, Tino, people are running through stop signs, and I don't pay any attention to it, and I keep blowing them off and blowing them off and blowing them off, guess what's going to happen in 4 years? They're going to blow me off. They're going to say, he's not representing us. He's not representing our neighborhood. So right now, accountability is at an all-time low because nobody holds our council members accountable. A lot of people don't. And I think we should. So I think we should go to a districting because I think, for me, when you have a district, that representative is responsible for his or her district, and that person is accountable to the issues and the people in that district.
So districting, I didn't want to bring up
there's-
districting
and
because there's a
there's
whole lot
pros
of
and
different
cons.
ways of doing things, right?
There's a million different
Yeah, we
ways.
can probably spend hours here talking about the pros
Which
and
we won't.
cons, which I won't do. I'm not going to go there. So something other than seat system would prevent the shuffle. Is that okay? So because that was the other part of my question.
Yeah, and the shuffling, by the way, is interesting because, again, I hate to say it, but I am going to go back to the 49ers. It was shuffling where there was one particular candidate went from one seat to another seat to another seat. Okay, and this person is very, very pro 49er, and so all of a sudden it went from a seat, and then it was, well, gee, is that person going to win that seat? Maybe not. So then another candidate comes into that seat who is pro 49er, and then the pro 49er candidate goes to another seat, and then another pro 49er comes in, and then candidate comes in, and then they go to another seat. And so, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to look and go, why would somebody run for 3 different seats? I was going to run for seat 4 from day one. I never wavered from this is going to be the seat I'm going to run for. And the reason I ran for that is because I fundamentally agree with what the other 3 council members are doing. We have a lot in common. We have some differences, but we have a lot in common. So I chose seat 4 from day one.
So don't you think the seat system in that scenario, aside from your opponents or what the shuffle has happened, don't you think that's a bit advantageous to you since you have commonalities with candidates on the other 3 seats? That
No, I don't think that it's advantageous to me.
Well, it's advantageous to the shared or common ideology.
Well, I mean, I think at the end of the
That
day...
the fact that you guys aren't running against each other.
Yeah. Well, again, but some of those people may not be up there. There may be different people up there if we went to districts, right? Because like 2 or 3 people may live in one district, so we can only have one, which means we would have different people up there. So it really cuts both ways. But the way the current system is you align yourself with who you fundamentally agree with. And some people want to align themselves with, Pat Kolstad, and that's fine. Or Dominic, or the mayor, right? Because they believe in what that person fundamentally represents. There's nothing wrong with that. It just so happens that one of the biggest issues that I had to go through was a soccer park, and I got to know these 3 candidates, and ultimately Mayor Gilmore. I got to know them very well. And so because of what we all kind of commonly worked on,
or thought, yeah.
I have a lot of respect for their ideologies, the way they think, the way they make decisions, and quite frankly, the fact that I really felt that they were going to stand up for people in Santa Clara.
Final question.
Okay.
All right. You are a generational, so correct me if I'm wrong.
X.
No, you, how many generations in Santa Clara for you and your family?
4.
4.
Goes back to my great-grandparents.
Okay, so it's not as it's not as long as some of the people that we've seen
No.
come through, but it's still
Been here a long time.
You've been here a long time. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
4 generations is not short. So this is a question from somebody. It applies to me too.
Sure.
But this is actually submitted. As someone who has not been here long, but has made Santa Clara my home, I'm curious as to how these candidates and candidates who are generational candidates plan on representing such a diverse population, which has changed so much since they lived here. In other words, how are they actively representing the new face of Santa Clara?
Well, here's the interesting thing. Santa Clara residents are Santa Clara residents. If it isn't like I go...
No, but you can't... Well, come on. There's a difference, though. You talk to a generational Santa Claran versus somebody who just came last year because of a tech job. There's a difference.
Well, here's the difference, okay? Somebody who's lived here for 30 or 40 years, okay, who knows how the city has operated and run for 30 or 40 years, I'm going to have a different conversation than I'm going to have with somebody who's only been here for, say, a year. Now, if that person who's only been here for a year says, hey, you're my representative, or, I know you, I'm familiar with you, I want to talk to you, I would give that person the same amount of my time as I would somebody who wanted to formally talk to me about something, who says, hey, I want to go to coffee, I want to sit down, I want to talk to you. If they're not a lobbyist, they're just a citizen, I would give them that same opportunity, okay? The difference is that somebody might say, remember when?
When you went to high school together.
We went to high school. Remember when we could do this, and this? Well, we're no longer able to do that. And I might fundamentally say, I actually do remember that. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Somebody who's new might have a different issue, which is every time I get up, there's tons of garbage in my street. Say somebody's living on the north side after an event, there's a bunch of garbage in their street. I'm going to give that person the same amount of time and the same amount of respect. And part of being a therapist, what you learn that whatever somebody brings to you is what they bring to you, right? So what that means is if you come to me with issue A or issue B or C, that's important to you. And if I'm representing you, then I need to be willing to have that conversation with you. And now, I fundamentally disagree. Well, here's where the difference comes in. I might say, 10 years ago or 5 years ago or 3 years ago, we actually tried to address this, and this is how we addressed it, and it never seemed to work, and that's why we're at where we're at today. That's the difference in somebody who's been here for a year might say, well, gee, that's not good enough. And I might say, well, we have tried. Doesn't mean we can't try something else, but I think everybody brings a different perspective to the conversation. And to say that I would be more favorable to one or the other is not true. I wouldn't be more favorable to one or the other, okay? But I might have more commonality with somebody who's lived and grown up in the same area that I have for 30 years or 40 years or more.
Well, sometimes we've seen that on council that commonality creates a conflict of interest where it technically does not require somebody to recuse themselves from an issue, but there is sentiment that it has created one person to sway one way or another. And I'm not talking about anybody in specific or any case in specific, but we've seen it many times. So there's plenty of examples to use. I mean, it's
I don't have the examples in front of me, so I can't tell you what I would do. Again, we go back to the Santa Clara way, right? So
Go for it. Just take a look. See what.
Let me just.
It's our last question anyway, so you might,
Okay, so we go back to the Santa Clara way. Okay, if somebody says, I really just don't like the fireworks in my neighborhood. I've been here for 2 years, and every 4th of July, these fireworks go off, and they scare my pets, and people are walking through my neighborhood, and they're littering, and all of this stuff, and I really don't like it, and I wish you would do something about it. Okay, Santa Clara has a rich tradition of its fireworks show. We're known for our fireworks show.
Mm-hmm.
Hundreds of thousands of people come to Santa Clara for the fireworks show. Now, if somebody is upset, if one person's upset and they've been here for 2 years and they want to see the fireworks show go away, I would arguably have to say, I'm going to side with the majority of the folks that want the fireworks show. It's part of Santa Clara. It's part of our tradition. That doesn't mean that I can't listen to the person. It doesn't mean that I can't hear them out. And maybe we need to do something about littering, or maybe the city needs to come through in the evening or the morning after and make sure that it cleans, the surrounding streets. All I'm saying is that you have to factor in all the variables. You have to look at the big picture as to what the person's asking. If what the person's asking is, hey, I've been here for a year, and this stop sign, I've seen 10 kids almost get hit, okay? I don't care if you've been here for a year or 40 years. That's a valid point. And so you have every right to come to council. And regardless of how long you've lived here, you have every right to come to council and make your case. The truth is that council is not always going to act in the way you would like them to act. Typically, unfortunately, when you make a decision, 99% of the time, there's a winner and there's a loser, right? If you make decisions on where to put development, okay, there's a winner, there's a loser. The goal is to see if we can make it a win-win. So how do we make it a win-win?
Final thoughts. Open mic.
I'm going to stop here because I think I've said more than I ever thought I would say. So I'm going to stop here.
You came in here thinking it'd be like,
Yeah.
a half hour. We're almost at 2-hour conversation right now, which I'm enjoying, by the way.
If anybody's watched 2 hours of this, I applaud you. I'm telling you what, I am definitely applauding you. Final thoughts. Again, I would go back to the two things that are very important to me is Measure R. I really hope people read the measure, understand it, and hopefully they'll support it. And again, term limits. That was something we worked very hard on in the Charter Review Committee. And, I'm a fundamental believer in term limits because I do believe that we need to have, as some people say, new blood, new ideas, a new way of doing things. I think it's imperative. That's how companies move forward. They bring in, different people with different thoughts, different ways of doing things, different ways of innovating. And that's how you move forward. I mean, if Apple, took their original crew and never hired anybody outside of Apple, it wouldn't be Apple today, because change is good. And change brings that variety, and change brings that different perspective and different ideas. I think, without term limits, we get stuck with the same folks over and over again. And I don't think that necessarily moves the city forward. So hopefully you'll vote for both those measures. And I want to thank you for being so honest and candid with me.
Oh, yeah, of course. That's what this is about.
I like the hard questions. I think all candidates should be asked the hard questions, and hopefully I've given you enough of a perspective to vote for me in November.
Okay.
Not you, but everybody else.
Scoot over so people can see your
So
website.
people can just go to, it's real simple. It's www.tinosilva.org.
All right. Hey, awesome. Thanks, Tino.
Thank you.
I'm just going to look at this camera here and just close up. That was a lot longer than I thought it would be. I mean, this is the second interview that I've done. Sud's interview was a little under an hour and a half, and this went to 2 hours, and we didn't even think it was going to be an hour. But great conversation. I very much enjoyed it. Thank you, Tino, for being here. I'm gonna shut this video, and again, I apologize. It's not live streamed. I'm gonna have to change the location. That's just I have 2 more interviews today here at this location, so unfortunately, 4 of the interviews are gonna be posted not as a live feed. But I'm just gonna have to adjust. It sucks, but sorry, I shouldn't say that. It's not pleasant. But anyways, thanks everybody for watching. I'm going to shut this video, and thank you, Tino, for being here.